Okay. Yeah, guy. Yeah, friggin' guy. Welcome, everybody. It's Spit, the surfing podcast. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass with you here on this Tuesday morning, September 15th, the middle of the month, 2020. What a year it's been. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Scott. I missed you so much last week. I woke up Tuesday morning, I was aimless. I had nowhere to go, no purpose in life. I just thrashed about in bed. The thrashing made it extra cozy though, friction adds warmth. So I just stayed in bed actually extra late. So it was kind of nice.
Okay, I'm not sure what to believe out of all of that. Probably nothing.
How was your bowling trip?
Bowling for dollars. It was great. I was just actually making a couple of vanity images for Instagram to post. People would look at me and think that I was great.
If that's not what Instagram is for, then what is it?
And we live in a screwed up situation.
The Instagram's the least concerning part of it all.
No, I know, but I mean, it's sort of just an example of how bad it's gotten.
Well, as I say that, I'm thinking maybe Instagram is actually the worst of it all. Maybe Instagram was the
tipping point.
Or just even like the seed, one of the initial seedlings that then sprouted all of the narcissism and superficiality and everything else.
I think Facebook was probably, or no, I guess it would have been
MySpace.
But
yeah, I think Facebook's probably got more responsibility because MySpace didn't have the social influence that Facebook does.
Yeah.
It was a trend for a minute. But another thought that I have is you were saying that you're coming up with a vanity post as if there's no value in doing that. Is there any value or virtue in vanity? Is there any benefit to vanity, or is it solely soul sucking?
I guess it depends on your motivation behind your post, and that determines whether it's vain or not. In my case, I just want to like throw up pictures of me surfing to kind of, like I said, it's basically a Band-Aid on some insecurity.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. When you really boil it down, I mean, why else would anyone throw, like,
because
if I wanted you to see me surfing, I would just send you a text with me. Hey, here's the waves I caught, David.
Well, if you just wanted me to see you, but you're part of a much larger community, like, there's a group that you're a part of, a brethren, and you're sharing amongst that. And so, like, for example, my new puppy, which I'll always bring the conversation back to the pup.
Yeah.
If I know other people that love dogs, they would want to know that I got a puppy so they can share in that joy. And I don't think that that's necessarily for my own benefit or for my vanity. It's just, hey, there's this group of people that like sharing in the same joys. So you're right. Your own intention is probably what indicates whether or not it's a communal effort versus just solely self-serving.
I mean, do I really think that people want to see a couple pictures of me surfing? Like, that's
100% they do. Like, especially with our podcast and having a podcast audience, they absolutely do.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
I don't think you need to feel bad about it.
Well, I just like to explore it. I like to excavate my motivations. I think your puppy, though, like the puppy's a little bit different because everyone can relate to the love that a dog brings to somebody's life. Like, there's true love there, whereas like riding a wave is like, hey, look, I kind of look at it like, I did something of more value than you did, like.
Yeah.
You could have like taken an old lady across the street every morning at 9:00, but the fact that I was catching really killer lefts in our little community means that I win.
Wait, where is there left in bowling?
Lefty's bowling alley.
You were bowling left-handedly? Is that what you're saying?
Oceanside. You got me. You caught me.
I completely understand what you're saying, and I think that you nailed it with your very first sentence, which that your intention is what is the indicator. So I think that you can post those photos as a contribution to the community without any. If it gets 0 likes, you're just as happy with that as if it, got 1,000.
Yeah. And the funny thing about like calling it bowling or whatever, like as if which is the ultimate, surfers are the worst. Like I'm trying to hide a resource from you so that you can't get to it, is ironic in that these people want me to tell you about where it is. Like it's a surf resort, they want customers. But no, I'm not going to tell you about my little surf resort.
Well, let me.
The worst.
How much of your not willing to disclose was to do with the fact that it is the year of the virus and there's a certain social stigma with travel?
A little bit of that. For sure, some of it is that, but most of it is that out of security and safety for my family, I don't really want people to know that I'm going somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's mostly that. Like, now that I'm back, I'm like, okay, yeah, I went to Mexico. I got some fun waves. You should go there. It's called Sinaloa Surf Resort. I've been 2 other times.
If your goal was to not let people know you were traveling, you failed miserably. You said, I'm going somewhere. I'll be gone these dates. I'll be back for the next podcast. But you just didn't disclose where that location was.
Right, because I think like if you say, yeah, I'm going to Europe, some bad actor could be like, oh, he's really going far away, Whereas if you
gave enough information for the bad actor to execute their nefarious plans regardless.
I probably did fail miserably, which isn't the first time.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Okay, I got a bunch of thoughts. Dude, you're stimulating a lot of, I guess it's maybe the coffee. You sign off your emails with your personal cell phone number. Right. That's bold.
Yeah, that's probably, I look at it like it's my, I'm in business. I'm an entrepreneur. I want people to be able to reach out to me and contact me. I won't answer my phone if I don't know who the call is.
Okay.
And if you leave a quick voicemail, I may return it. I might not. It depends.
Got it. In this modern world, I have, there's a strata of levels of communication, and Instagram DMs, you can get a hold of kind of me or anybody. And then email, there's another kind of barrier of you have to kind of know the person to have their email address. Cell phone is as close to individual one-on-one communication as there is. And so I don't give that out. And I honestly don't even want to use it. Like, I don't want to talk on the phone to anybody. I will text, but.
Yeah, I hear you. You make a lot of good points there, and I should probably be more discretionary with my phone now that I think about it. I do like your levels of, and I often get people through our podcasts that are like, hey, I want to reach out to Jerry Lopez or whoever, can you give me their phone number? And I'm like, like, why don't you just IG them on Instagram?
Yeah.
Like if you can't figure it out, I'm not your personal assistant.
No, it's definitely not cool to give out Jerry Lopez's phone.
Well, I'm just using that. I would never do that. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
They might want your phone number. And I'm like, dude, just, Instagram.
Don't give it to them. Yeah. The other thought was in regard to the social stigma associated with traveling. How do you feel about Kelly Slater and the pros that are in Bali right now?
Yeah, it's funny. First of all, I don't sense that. I know there is a social stigma with traveling. I guess there is. You're saying there is, and I sort of sense that a little bit, especially based on some of the pushback I got from my trip. But I kind of feel like if you're willing to roll the dice, go roll the dice. It's not, like, I guess if you come back with the Rona and you're not, I don't know. I don't feel like there should be social stigma with traveling.
Yeah, I don't either.
Kind of like, dude, you're putting your own life in your own hands. Like,
partially, they're that, and then also potentially spreading the idea of roaming about the world is the opposite of quarantine.
Right.
So you could be spreading. But I agree with you. I don't care at all. And I feel like those countries have guidelines. And if you're meeting their guidelines and you're meeting the airlines guidelines, then what else can you do?
I felt very, I guess if there is such a thing as safe in the coronavirus world, I felt really safe. Like, I mean, and I of course took my own precautions, you know, masks and gloves and hand washing and distancing and, you know, crossing the border straight onto a plane, super masked up, get off the plane, onto a bus and out to a place where there's nobody else. Like I was literally with, you know, 7 other guys. And it's kind of funny now that I think about it, because you're like, oh, I know them. It's like there's this weird thing where like if you know them, they must not have it. You know, like without any testing being taken. You know, it's like,
right.
Hey, you know, like white middle class American guy from California, he must not have it. You know, like there's 10 of us. We all just took our masks off and just went for it.
Of course.
Assuming that nobody had it.
Well, look, it's insane to think that we're ever going to be at a point where we have access to all of the information, where we're all going to be being tested daily, monitoring all of our levels, you know, de-sterilizing or disinfecting every single surface. And you don't want to live in that society, because that ultimately leaves you vulnerable to other people controlling, essentially. So I'm all for what you just said, which is using common sense and just a little bit of logic. And you can see your 7 or 6 buddies, you know, their families are healthy. They've been healthy throughout all of this. They're getting exercise. Their immune system is strong. And that's enough kind of, I don't know, surveying of the criteria that I think you can make a responsible decision at that point. And the other thing is, let's not all think that the worst case scenario is getting the thing. The worst case scenario is dying of the thing. But look, we're probably going to get it at some point. Now that this is here, a lot of us are going to get it. That's not a death sentence. The actual death rate is minute. And so don't be so scared of getting it. Protect yourself. Try not to get it. If you get it, it's not the end of the world. Just don't spread it to somebody vulnerable.
Yeah, somebody close to me just got it, and they're like laughing. They're like, dude, I'm stoked. I got it. I'm immune now. At least they think they are. Right. And they feel like liberated. You know, they're like, no worries. I'm cruising, you know?
Well, so there's that. There's also another kind of dystopian scenario where, what about the people who have never gotten it, who are, you know, I don't know, superhuman? Like there's a version where if there are, I guess, if you can get it and you're immune at that point, then that is also a certain level of freedom that you could go about in society with. But I was just thinking, if it becomes divided, social classes become divided by those who are carriers of it and those who are not affected by it, you know, that would be an interesting world that we could live in at that point. Like if you worked outside sales, you couldn't put somebody out in the field who's a potential spreader, but you could put somebody out in the field who isn't.
Oh, right.
And that person could then earn more money than that other person.
That goes on your resume right at the top. I've already had it. I'm good to go. Sign me up.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Anyway, so travel wise, sounds like you walked across the border and then flew out of TJ?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And how did you feel Mexico? Were they taking it any more seriously or less seriously?
They're totally taking it seriously in Mexico. Okay. Absolutely. Everybody had masks on.
Okay.
I guess in an airport you have to, but I felt like they were way more, okay, this is what we need to do. And they were doing, I didn't sense that there was any like backlash about it. But I will say that the airport was super crowded. I've flown around a little bit since this thing, and the American airports are empty. And the Tijuana airport was packed.
Interesting.
They're flying, man. They're flying.
Yeah. Well, how is it that you have photos of your trip? Did you guys hire a photographer to hang with you?
No, there's a guy that takes photos that's out there at the resort.
He works for the resort, and that's part of the package?
I think somebody threw a camera in his hand. They usually do have a camera. Like I've gone before, and the guy just sits in the boat and shoots photos all day.
And so do you, is he just freelance and you buy
I
images
didn't buy
after the
anything.
fact?
No, this was different. This was like the guy had a camera that was on the trip. He gave the camera to one of the workers. He's like, "Hey, shoot some photos." The guy shot some photos, not very many, maybe 2 days, and not even the big day, which is whatever. And then just I just downloaded a couple of good ones that I only got like 6 photos or whatever. I don't
I mean, surf
I didn't need
photography
edit.
is a skill. It's not like you could just
No,
hand
yeah,
somebody a
exactly.
camera.
No, exactly. This is one of those guys that's just like auto drive, like shot like 900 photos in an hour and did no editing.
And didn't know which turns to even shoot and that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me about the trip. How was it?
It was killer. The waves were killer. The waves were super killer. I surfed every single day, maybe 2 times on some days. I was up every morning at the crack. I was standing on the beach in the dark, waiting for it to get light. And it was that, warm water with offshore winds. It's that ultimate morning feeling where, groomed hard offshore with warm water is just such a great feeling. And I scored tons and tons of waves and just surfed backside the whole time. And really entirely rode the 610 twin fin from Ryan Sakel.
Mm.
And just dug it. It was probably too much board. The waves were only 3 to 4. The big day was maybe 5 to 6, but it was consistently 3 to 4 with sets. And then the big day, like I say, there was a couple of overhead sets, and it just felt like, to me, it felt like the 510 wood board that I brought was too wide and was too squirrely for how much push this wave. This wave provided plenty of speed. And it also moves around a lot. And that smaller board is a board where I need to be surfing at a place like I don't know, like V-Land or like a place where it just all comes to a peak at one spot, where there's not any paddling around to catch the wave. Like pit stops near eBay is kind of like that, where you're sitting on one little zone where the wave comes. And this spot, you need to move around a lot. There's a current, you got to paddle a ton. And so the 510 just felt too small. So I ended up riding the 610, which I think definitely was too big, at least based on the photos I've been viewing. There's moments where I'm just kind of out on the shoulder. I wish that backside I was more kind of Nat Young-ish, or who else really impresses me backside a lot is the Australian Matt. Who's the Australian goofy foot that rips it backside? It's off the tour now. Matt Rip Curl.
Oh yeah, Wilkinson.
Yeah, Wilkinson. Those two guys and the Brazilians. A lot of the Brazilians are really good at throwing it back there. But anyway, I wasn't doing that.
But do you have a lot of success backside on a twin fin in general?
No.
I know backside twin is hard.
But this board, this board was really good in that regard. And I agree. If I probably had like a 6'2" or 6 foot twin fin, it might have been a little too loosey-goosey and a little bit of a spin out situation. I rode those Naked Viking Sea Drive fins. I've actually got a cool photo of me doing a bottom turn with those fins fully, one of the fins out of the water. You can see the water flowing off the fins. Those guys will probably be stoked to see that photo. Just, if they want to see what's going on with the water flow off of their fin.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, Slater's riding those fins in Bali.
Oh, really?
He's actually not riding the Sea Drives, but he's riding the Naked Viking Dan Mans.
Oh, cool.
I sent them a photo of that yesterday. They had already seen it because I guess a bunch of people sent it to him, but it's a good.
Oh, that's going to outshine my little photo of me from a marketing standpoint.
Well, the idea of riding the mid-length twin backside, I ride that Morning of the Earth board, and backside, I have more success on it than other twin fins backside. Like you said, shorter twin fins backside, I really can't sort out. But with that board, I definitely had a blast on it, but it's only like horizontal surfing at best. Yeah. Like it's kind of like a roller coaster, like bank a section, skirt off the bottom, bank another section. There's no redirecting. I cannot swing the thing back and bank or anything. Lot more limited range of motion than front.
Well, I think all of us want a center fin surfboard. If it's a single or a tri-fin, when we're surfing backside, I just generally think they're just better boards backside to have a centered fin board, but mostly because our back foot is so engaged backside, our back leg.
Yeah.
And that's what I was hoping that's why I brought the wood board. It was a 3-fin. I was like, okay, this will be the one where I get to go ding, ding.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was just not enough board, too small of a board for that situation.
Yeah. Did you get barreled?
I got one barrel, and the guy got the photo, and I was
sick.
I'll send it to you. Hey,
Yeah.
you can see it on my Instagram.
Perfect. What is your Instagram handle, Scott?
Hey, I think it's Boardroom Show.
It is.
Yes, it is
Boardroom
Show. Yeah, at Boardroom Show on Instagram. Please follow me.
Good. Well, man, I'm jealous how'd your athleticism hold up, by the way?
Well, it's a great question, and it sort of started off slow, and there was a lot of aches and pains, a lot of old man aches and pains. And but of course, as is always the case, around the end of the trip, I was fully engaged physically, and I came home strong. Like I'm ready to go, you know, like I wish there was waves here because I'm in really good shape, and that's going to fade away probably by tomorrow.
Dude, you know? Yeah, I feel so out of shape sometimes. And then going on a trip like that, it feels good for all of that to come together and be like, oh, no, I'm still okay. Like I've still got it, you know?
Yeah. And you can
eat
just like 4,000 calories and just be burning it off, you know, because I was in the water a lot.
Yeah. And it just feels good too, to be that exhausted and to have a reason to be that exhausted. Cause there's no chance I'm going to go spend 4 hours in a gym, you know, but I will spend 4 hours in the middle of tropical sun paddling nonstop.
Yeah, exactly.
So good for you, man. I'm psyched.
Yeah, it was fun. You should have went. You could have gone.
I got another invite this week actually to go to that same area, but I just can't pull it off, dude. I've got lots of obligations here.
Yeah. You got a dog, dude. You're settled in.
So she's learning how to use her paws right now, and she'll just like wrap them around you. And so this morning, just an hour ago, I was walking around and she just wanted to play. So she wraps around my calf and drags down. And then as she gets to and I'm like, ooh, cringing. And then as she gets to my ankle, she's losing grip. So she goes again and left 2 big cut marks down my leg. And so ever since we started recording, she's been licking my wound.
Oh my God.
She's down here right now just licking away, because I don't think it's that she feels bad. I think she just likes the taste of blood.
That's a great soundbite right there. You're going to need to pull that out of this recording.
She's got the bloodlust right now. I think she's going to start cutting me just to lick the blood.
How big is she now? Can you bring her up and let me see how much she's grown?
Yeah, she's grown a lot.
Because I think she's going to be large. I think she's going to be a large dog.
Yeah, she's gotten, I would say, 3 to 4 times bigger since we got her. Like the first vet visit was like, 7 pounds, and she's up in the 20 range now.
She's a very happy dog.
Yep.
You're so stoked.
Hey, Soph. You want to say hi? Yeah, she's the best. These are the culprits.
I can see you dressing her up as a reindeer for Christmas, like, in the photo, the Christmas photo. You're going to have Sophie as a reindeer with little antlers on her.
Funny you should ask, because we've been discussing Halloween costumes. We refer to it as a Black Panther, because she gets this look in her eye when she wants to play and she wants to fight, and she just comes charging and she looks like a Black Panther. So we're just gonna, we're gonna play off the Black Panther theme, the Marvel movie.
Okay, very good.
Anyway, dude, lots has gone on in this last week. Surf competitions are back. There's a couple of big legal happenings in surf. Where would you like to begin? Do you want to read more emails about Brazil?
Not really.
Okay.
I think we've burned that one out for a while.
Yep, I'm fine with not reading those.
I did get an email from Corey from Cronulla, who wrote a great email about basically kind of Kook University. And I can boil it down into just his final sentence, which is, don't try and make your surf better by making someone else's worse. I think that's a pretty good mantra.
Profound. And as I saw that email exchange, I was thinking, really the Kook U lessons and rules apply to life. They should apply to life.
Yeah.
And that one absolutely does. And so if we do this, our job correctly, Kookyou will have like, the 10 commandments essentially that will help you throughout the rest of your life. They certainly apply in surfing, but they transition to your time on land as well.
Yeah.
Right?
I would agree to that. We could try to just take the 10 commandments and mesh them into I don't know.
Covet your neighbor's.
No, isn't the first one
Thou shalt not kill?
I don't even know. I think it's love your neighbor as yourself, but I don't know.
Man, we're pathetic.
I know.
We are pathetic.
Pseudo-Catholics.
Um,
I'm actually reading a couple of great books. I don't know if I mentioned the Thomas Merton book that I'm reading called New Seeds of Contemplation. Thomas Merton, he's a monk. Was a monk. Anyway, it's pretty deep, and it's pretty, I don't know if that's for everyone. It's pretty deep reading. But the other one I'm reading, which I'm really enjoying as well, and you've probably heard of this one, it's called Sapiens.
I read it.
Good book.
It's really good. Yeah, I
I'm
read
really
it
enjoying it
2 years ago or something. I don't know why it was so popular when it came out. Maybe that's when it came out is when it was popular. But yeah, it was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm enjoying that book, and I would recommend that book to a lot of people.
Yuval is the guy's name, right?
Yeah, an Israeli guy.
Yeah. Do you know his full name?
No.
Yuval Hari or something, maybe?
Something like that. I don't know.
Okay. By the way, the 10 Commandments. I am the Lord thy God. That's number 1.
How do we apply that to Kookyou?
That's the problem with Kookyou is like, or with surfers. That's why surfers are the worst, is that they've always applied commandment number 1 in their own surf experience.
Exactly.
So
I think it was Yvonne Chouinard who once said that surfing is like the only thing that it absolutely does nothing for humanity. It does zero for humanity. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no good for humanity, for mankind that comes from surfing.
I'm not one to argue with Yvonne Chouinard. However, I would think making yourself better makes you a better father, makes you a better husband, makes you a better employee at work, all that sort of stuff, right?
You're assuming it makes you better.
That's a good point. Yeah. If you're going into the water thinking, I am the Lord thy God, then you're probably not being better.
Exactly.
All right. Then number 2 is thou shalt have no other gods before me. Number 3 is
God, this is horrible.
This guy was a narcissist. Why
was a surfer? Apparently, Moses was a surfer.
Yeah, this is wild. My Bible study in childhood never taught me about his narcissism. This is crazy. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image.
No porn.
I don't think that's what that is.
I don't know. What is it?
Like creating false idols.
Thou
shalt not make unto thee any graven image.
Any graven image?
Graven.
Any graven image.
Graven. Yeah, weird. All right, number 4. Thou shalt not take the Lord thy God name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy, honor thy mother and father. Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet neighbor's wife, thou shalt not covet neighbor's slaves, animals, or anything else.
Isn't that 10 already?
Yeah, that's 10.
Don't covet my waves, bro.
Remember the
that's gonna be a t-shirt. Don't covet my waves, bro.
Remember the other tablet fell and broke that had the other 5 commandments on it?
Oh my God.
That was from the Mel Brooks movie. Moses walks out and he's like, these are the 15, and then one slips and falls and breaks and he goes, 10 commandments.
Oh, Mel Brooks is a funny guy. That's funny.
It is funny. By the way, is there anything simultaneously older and newer than a tablet? There was this
good point.
There was the tablet that Moses had that he would write the commandments on, and Steve Jobs would let you surf the internet on a tablet.
Hmm.
Which arguably is why Steve Jobs chose the name tablet, but I digress.
Well,
Well,
interesting Ten
this,
Commandments.
this has been an excellent episode of Spit, the surf podcast.
We're just bored, so bored right now. They're like, please tell me about the Tweed Coast Pro.
Did you watch it?
Hell no.
Why not?
I was bowling.
You were in transit?
I think I was bowling.
It was Sunday.
I don't know. First of all, there's the NFL football that they're competing with. There's NHL hockey. There's the San Diego Padres, who should probably be at the first of that list. There's the Padres, the NFL, and hockey. I mean, was Kelly Slater in the con? I mean, I don't know.
So
Tell me about it. Should I have watched it?
Well, no. I mean, it's more interesting. I'll tell you all about the contest, but it's also more interesting that you, who lives, eats, and breathes surfing, isn't interested in watching a pro surf contest because there's other sporting events on. And I'm not saying that's your fault.
To me, it feels like it's a QS.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a problem for the WSL. If they've lost fans due to the downtime, that's a huge problem that they're going to have to overcome.
Yeah.
When Kelly Slater isn't even watching the contest, I mean, literally simultaneously as the contest is running, Kelly's posting imagery from G-Land in real time. And by the way, Eric Logan was posting, I think he was watching Sunday football at the time, like no joke. I opened up Instagram midway through the contest and he was posting stuff that wasn't contest related. And he did post something contest related in addition to all of that. But I was like, dude, I think you should really curate your feed to really hype the thing that you're in business doing.
Is that his personal feed though? Or
it's his personal feed for sure. But still, I think you got to act as if, and I think Kelly should. I don't think that Kelly should. I think that the fact that Kelly isn't is an indicator.
Right.
The fact that Kelly's not watching the Tweed Coast Pro is an indicator.
Yeah, like the silence is deafening almost.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I did watch it. I'll say I watched it partially. We were kind of in and out of the house. At a certain point, I started cooking or barbecuing. So I put it on the TV, volume down. So I wasn't listening to anything. And just as I'm coming and going throughout the room, I would watch. And if somebody was up and riding, I would watch. Ultimately, the waves would have been amazing for you and I to surf. Were not that great to watch. It wasn't high drama, high stakes or anything like that. It was pretty mushy. And there were good moments, like maybe the morning conditions were better, but it was for the most part, it was mushy. And the one thing that I did like about it though, and this was true prior to COVID, but this kind of seeing it now was like a reminder that this is the essence of what we want out of surfing, was dramatic showdowns with contrasting styles, particularly like watching Mikey Wright versus Matt McGillivray, whose name you don't know, but he made the final. He surfs really, really well. He actually qualified for the tour this year. South African kid. Matt McGillivray is the most predictable. He comes right out of the same vein as a maybe Adriana De Souza or even Chloe Andino, where it's like, he's going to get 2 7s in every heat, no matter what. And then Mikey Wright does a big bottom turn and just blows the lip out and goes into like some big layback that you think there's no chance Mikey Wright's coming out of this. And then he stands up and you're like, what? And it's a flat section. So he's just like milks it till he gets to the inside to try to connect the dots. And okay, how do you score that? How do you score some crazy layback blowtail versus Matt McGillivray doing 8 turns to the beach? That drama keeps me engaged, waiting for that score to come in, waiting to see if that was a fluke for Mikey or if he's going to be able to do it again on his next wave, which by the way, he was able to. And by the way, Matt McGillivray won the heat. They preferred Matt McGillivray's conservative surfing or predictable surfing. But those elements of contrasting styles and drama are what the WSL needs to recognize is the magic sauce. That'll keep us engaged. If there's tons of downtime, tons of waiting between waves, tons of similar competitors competing against one another, which, by the way, I also identified is the problem with the women's tour. The women's style of surfing is too homogeneous that it becomes not dramatic.
No, I agree totally.
I never thought about that before with the women. I just thought at a certain level of, ripping or whatever, like it's engaging, but that's almost not what it is. It's more contrasting styles that we need. And the women's, again, tour is more homogeneous.
You and I have, especially me, but I know you agree with me, we've been tooting this horn for a long time. And really, at the end of the day, the waves are the stars. The surfers aren't the stars of the show. And if there's just crappy beach break in Australia or whatever, and and then that equals homogenous surfing from both camps,
right?
It's kind of like, dude, you know what, I was in the NSSA 40 years ago. I don't need to go see an NSSA contest. I'm just, it's
that's
boring.
What it felt like.
Boring.
Totally.
And the only thing that stops that is if the NSSA contest is in like 10-foot new pier or something like that, then I'm like, holy shit, look at the waves.
But even then, that contest, there's only going to be one kid that shines in those conditions, and you got to watch 100 kids compete to see that.
Well, I mean a QS or something like.
But that's my point, though, is if that is the NSA example, 1 out of 100, and the WSL is, let's say, 10 out of 32 that we actually want to watch.
Yeah.
The QS falls somewhere in between, where it's like, I don't know. Yeah. 20%, maybe 10% of the competitors are actually worth watching.
Yeah. And I'll never watch a QS event, but if it's 8 to 10 foot new pier, I'll watch highlights of it. I'll check out the boiled down version because it's going to be killer.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things that are worth noting out of this event. Ethan Ewing is absolutely a world-class contender. He won on the men's side, and you could tell he was going to win from the first wave that he stood up on. He is the real deal.
Oh, I think we identified that last year.
Totally.
Was he rookie year? Was that his rookie season last year?
He was rookie season 2018, and then actually I think he only won 1 heat throughout the entire year. So he got disqualified. And then he is, I want to say, requalified for 2020, or maybe not quite.
I don't know.
I forget whether or not he requalified for 2020, but he will requalify at some point, and he is a real threat. Jack Robinson competed. Jack Robinson was wonderful to see, but small waves are not his forte. So I was reading Michael Ciamarella's recap of the event on Stab, and he mentioned that Jack Robinson actually moved from Western Australia to the Gold Coast specifically to learn, or basically to improve in small waves, which I thought was actually a big shame. I understand it, and it's actually probably smart, and it'll ensure that he does well in other contests like the Tweed Coast Pro, but I don't really want him to do well in the Tweed Coast. Like, I'm okay with him not winning the Tweed Coast Pro. I'm worried that he'll lose some of his magic sauce. No, you don't think so?
No, he'll have magic sauce forever.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, when he's 40 years old, he'll be charging North Point and being the best guy out there.
Yeah, but I mean, he is. And so that's the thing is, at 40, would he be better at North Point had he stayed living at North Point through these next 20 years? Is he going to, okay. You don't think his 40-year-old performance at North Point will suffer because he lived on the Gold Coast?
No.
Okay.
I don't. Because he's a freak.
Yeah, he's a natural talent.
Hey, I just got an email that's interesting. I don't know if you know.
I did too. Is it from
Andrew?
Yeah, go ahead and read it. It relates.
We just got an email and it says, "Hey, David Scott, I found myself feeling pretty negative at the latest posts from Kelly Slater and Strider Wazalewski on social media. Maybe it's just the ugly green monster of envy, but something in the flaunting nature of those posts from that boat trip around Sumbawa and Lombok gave me a bad taste in my mouth. We're in the middle of a terrible pandemic, and much of the world is shuttered and not allowing travel. People have lost their jobs, they're locked inside, urged not to move around, even within their own countries, to stop the spread of a contagion. Indonesia closed up shop, but now we see a group of wealthy, privileged surfers being allowed special access into the country And then instead of quietly going off and doing their trip, they're being mindful that many of us are deep in the shit and pent up. They post giddy footage of themselves playing an empty perfection that has been presented to them. Not empty because they've covered some new misto reef, but empty because everything is closed to the general population of Australian, American, Brazilian, and European surfers that would usually be flocking to such places. Honestly, if I had the resources and connections to do it, I probably would too. Surfers are the worst and all. But keep that shit to yourselves. Maybe it's just sour grapes on my part. What do you guys think?
I understand Andrew's point. I cannot relate to it at all. I don't feel any sour grapes. Because I'm not suffering through COVID. So to me, it doesn't look like they're flaunting. It looks like these are professional surfers whose job it is to publish themselves surfing. And that's what Kelly's doing. And I'm not bothered by it. And I want to see Kelly surf. I like watching him surf Padang the other day. And now he's at G-Land. I want to see what that looks like. So I don't feel like he's flaunting. I feel, and the question of privilege, dude, if he has the means to go surf G-Land, there's no better way to use your resources than to go surf G-Land. I have no problem with that at all. I'm totally envious of it. But I have no problem. I can't relate to it. I think that Andrew's point is representative of a lot of people because I've gotten similar DMs and I know a lot of people feel that way. I can't relate to it at all.
Yeah, I'm on your side of the equation here too. I mean, I just got back from a surf trip and I'm about to post a photo. So how can I,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the Tweed Coast Pro is one of 3 events that the WSL is doing as kind of a novelty series in Australia. So there's 2 more to look forward to. You still got me? It says unstable connection.
I do hear you. You stopped for a little bit, but you're loud and clear now.
Okay. So yeah, the Tweed Coast Pro is one of 3 events that they're going to be running in Australia. Interestingly, Stab Magazine is doing another Surf 100 event this Thursday. Do you remember the Surf 100 event that they did at Lowers?
Yes.
It's 100 minutes of surfing. They film it in advance. This was already filmed, I think, 3 weeks ago. They did it at North Point with Jack Robinson, Jay Davies, Jacob Wilcox, and Cale Walsh. So 4 surfers get 100 minutes to go surf against the crowded lineup, just a regular free surf session that they're filming. And they then have Michael Ciamarella kind of prejudge it. They have a couple of professional commentators, Dane Reynolds, Salema Masakela, and I don't know who the third judge or commentator is going to be. Commentator, not judge. And then the internet, if you pay them their $15 fee or $10 fee in advance, you could watch it in real time. So you're not watching it live, but you're watching the full 100 minutes as they played out in that session. And you, as the internet viewer, are able to score the waves. And that doesn't actually determine the winner, I don't think. But if you are scoring similarly to Michael Ciamarella, then you do win a prize. Like the one who scores most similar to Mikey then gets the prize. So that is going to go down this Thursday, I think 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can find your local time on Stab's website, stabmag.com. But they scored. The waves are absolutely pumping. Jake Patterson was doing live commentary on site, so there's that to enjoy as well. So
I'm like 80% in on this. And if it was free, I'd be 90% in on this. And my 10% or 20% of hesitation is based on the sort of 30,000 foot level of I'm out surfing North Point and here comes a scene. I've now got pro surfers in the water that are not just surfing for fun, but are surfing for some sort of title, some sort of deeper competition than just your average surf. There's 25, 30 other guys out here that are, I'm presuming are locals, even if they're not, whatever. And now we've got this, these guys just showed up and just put this umbrella over this situation at North Point. And it feels kind of like, I don't know, it feels like prostitution or something. Like it's different if they get a permit and they clear the water and all the locals know. And it's,
Well, that's the
so
point.
again, I'm
That's the point.
80%, I'm 90% in on the concept, and I'd watch it in a second and I would vote, and I get it. But I kind of feel for the guys that surf there all the time. They're like, oh shit, here comes this shit show, these fucking people.
I think you're missing the point though. Like
Maybe I am. Maybe I am.
the idea is who's going to surf the best in a free surf. And so these are 4 surfers that would be surfing North Point that day and that swell, no
I
matter
understand
what.
that. I get that, but
And they're
I
not
still
putting
think,
cameras, they're not blocking, they're not putting cameras in the water. I mean, maybe there's going to be water photographers out there anyway. This isn't any added
yeah,
elements to the day. It's the exact elements that would take place on that day. And we as viewers get to see who surfs the best.
isn't there money involved?
I don't know.
Okay, if there's no money involved, then maybe I'm way more involved. I just sense you get 4 surfers in the lineup and there's money involved with the winner. But maybe there's no money involved. Maybe
I
it's
don't
just,
think that there was in part 1. I remember them saying that the earnings generated from the webcast were going to be evenly divided among the talent. And I presume that meant the commentary talent as well. So I don't know.
I would love to watch it. So again, I'm not here to hate on that. I'm just looking at it from the local guy's point of view. But maybe you've done a good job of sort of walking me back from that opinion.
Well, if Jack, I mean, who's more local than Jack Robinson and Jay Davies?
I'm not saying he's not local. I'm talking about
and so they would have been out in the lineup, kind of ruling it anyways.
Right.
I would think. I will say this has a lot more appeal than the lowers version of it does, simply because the waves are cooking. You know?
Yeah.
So, and they were, by the way,
so
they scored amazing swell.
And we can watch this boiled down version on Thursday.
It's not boiled down. It's the full 100 minutes in real time.
How do you know if it's in real time? How do you know the waves are cooking? This is already
they
happened,
filmed
right?
it. They filmed it 3 or 4 weeks ago. Yeah. And they've leaked out footage.
So why do we have to wait to a certain time of the day to watch it? Like,
so that they could sell tickets to it.
Okay. So you got to, okay.
Yeah.
So then the question is, will you buy a ticket?
Unfortunately, I have a dinner that I got to go to on Thursday, so I don't have. No. If I was home, I would pay the $10 in advance and I would watch it for sure.
Did they make the lowers 100 available eventually for free to watch at some point?
No, not in its complete 100 minutes, but that was the very next day you were able to see highlights. You know, like the best waves, basically.
Well,
the 2 waves that Chloe won on, I saw.
So you can watch a boiled down version the day after.
Yeah. I have a feeling we will see the winning waves the day after for sure. Yeah. So my money's on Jack Robinson, obviously, but I'm thrilled to see Jay Davies. Can't get enough Jay Davies in my book.
Okay, fair enough.
Can I fill you in on some business happenings in the surf world while you were gone?
Yes.
As reported on Stab Magazine, just I think this morning, Nike is making a comeback into the surfing world. So Nike had, I want to say it was 7 or 8 years ago, they made a foray into surfing with a brand that they called Nike 6.0. And they basically sponsored all of the best athletes on the men and the women's side, threw a ton of money around, and within 2 years pulled out. They also purchased Hurley. I don't know if they purchased Hurley during that 2 years or if it was prior. And I think ultimately what their decision became was, we don't need 2 separate entities in the surf space. I think probably behind that decision for Nike was surfing's not big enough. Like, even if we dominate this market, it's not as big as baseball, basketball, tennis, all these other markets that we're in. And so it's really not worth our time. But we do have this Hurley property that does dominate the space, and we can kind of shift all of our assets in terms of athletes over into the Hurley team and still dominate. So they basically
they were cannibalizing one of their own brands, and they're like, this is stupid, why are we doing this? They had purchased Hurley prior.
It was prior
into the space. Yeah.
Okay. So that all happened. That's old news. But the fact that they're now they sold Hurley, obviously, that was a big news story in the last year. They sold Hurley to Blue Star Alliance. The Hurley family themselves have all left the company and are now involved in a holding company, essentially, that is, they've now purchased Simple Shoes as a shoe brand. They are backing John Florence in his own clothing brand, and there's a lot more to come, I'm sure, from them. But meanwhile, on the side, Nike now is apparently making a comeback into the surf space. What are your thoughts on Nike getting back into surfing?
Well, you're right. I mean, so Nike, apparently they've already leveraged some space in the big time surf retail, specialty retail stores. So they have the clout to just march in and go, hey, we want some space. And they've received that. Will they sign a team rider? Will they simply, as I mentioned, leverage their way into retail to really what is, as you know, the ever expanding vulnerable adult learner demographic, which has been loyal to Nike for decades. And they'll simply buy their Nike at Jack's Surf Shop instead of at Target. You know?
Well, then why would Nike do it then? If Nike knew that they already had that client?
I'll tell you why, because I feel like Nike can just go, hey, the surf retail, specialty surf shop retail space is super weak right now. Let's just roll the dice and let's try to get 15% market share first year. Let's just see if we can do it. And then year 2 and 3, let's see if we can get to 20% market share, maybe 25% market share. And what do we've got to lose?
So I understand that part, but your initial thing of there's a loyal Val who's already buying Nike at Target, so now they'll just buy it there instead. I'm saying that isn't the strategy. I would argue, you asked, will they sponsor an athlete? 1,000%. That's what Nike does. They're all about athletes, leveraging the athlete to do a line of product with that athlete. So there's never been a better time to hire or to sponsor surf athletes. Julian Wilson doesn't have a sticker on his board. Kelly Slater doesn't have a shoe sponsor. John Florence is available. I mean, presuming he's not.
Gabe Medina's the guy.
Gabe Medina has 30 stickers on his board. He doesn't need another sticker. Carissa Moore, Stephanie Gilmore, none of them as shoe sponsors. You could come in.
You're Nike. Which guy do you want? That's what they're thinking. They don't give a shit about how many stickers you
have. Idolo.
Maybe it's Idolo. I feel like Gabe's already got connections with Nike through his sort of highbrow crowd that he runs with, like soccer stars and shit.
Well, Felipe already has connections with them because he's in the Hurley camp, and that was all tangled up for a while. So there's definitely going to be overlap.
Yeah, I think you wash all of that away. I think Nike just looks at it like, look, who do we grab?
I think they grab Idolo. Makes the most sense to me.
Okay,
he's the world champ.
Down with that.
Yeah,
I'm totally down. I could see that happening. Just imagine Jack's a huge window of Idolo and a Nike 6.0, and you're a vulnerable adult learner, and you're like, I want to shop at the surf shops now. And you go to the surf shops, and there's Nike, and you're like, killer, I've been loyal to this brand forever. Now I'm in.
It's no longer 6.0, by the way. They're just sticking with the regular Nike. But I think the vulnerable adult learner doesn't care about Idolo. I think they could pick John and Idolo. And John appeals to the Patagonia demographic, and Idolo appeals to the youth demographic. And that covers all of their bases.
What I'm arguing is that the vulnerable adult learner, you're right, he doesn't care about Idolo, but he goes into the surf shop and he sees Nike. And he's like, look, there's some pro athlete. I don't know, Idolo. I don't even know who he is. I'm a vulnerable adult learner. But I know Nike, and I've been loyal to Nike, and I'm going to buy Nike. And the reason that they sign Idolo is so that they can kind of get a little bit more leverage in the surf shops and kind of go, oh, look, what's $2 million a year to us? Nothing.
Well, that's the other thing is there's never been a better time to sponsor surf athletes because they're willing to work for 1/20th of what the NBA star is going to ask for. They're dirt cheap. You can come in and throw money around for 5 years and get out cleaner than you would in any other sport. I think, honestly, Slater could be an interesting pick. I mean, I could see them doing with Slater what they did with Jordan or anybody. Like, I could see a Slater shoe. Would you wear a Slater shoe?
I wouldn't, but I could see it, and I wouldn't not wear a Slater shoe. But I totally agree with you. I mean, my feeling is if a guy on a wave storm walks into Jack's surf shop and he's got Ruka, he's got Salty Crew, he's got Billabong, Quicksilver, Hurley maybe, or Nike, I'm just going to buy Nike because I don't even know who these other brands are. I didn't grow up with these other brands. They don't mean anything to me, but Nike is Jordan.
That person would buy the Nike if Nike had some authentic athlete associated with it.
They
and
do.
Michael
Jordan.
No.
That's my point. Yeah.
No, that guy on the Wave Storm.
Athlete.
That guy on the Wave Storm needs to see John in that advertising, or Kelly's kind of the best example. If that guy walked in and saw Kelly is co-signing Nike, he would then jump on board.
I agree with you. But my point is the reason that they're loyal to Nike, it doesn't matter if it's Julian or if it's Idolo or if it's Kelly. It's going to be a surfer. And I walk in from a vulnerable adult learner and I'm like, cool, they've signed a pro surfer.
Yeah.
And they immediately subconsciously are like Michael Jordan. Nike is Michael Jordan.
Well, yeah, but
it doesn't matter which pro surfer it is. It's cool that they got a pro surfer and they need to get a pro surfer, but it doesn't matter.
Well, that's my point though. They can't do it without a pro surfer, because if that guy just walks in and thinks Jordan, he's not walking into a surf shop to buy a Jordan associated product. If he walks in and sees a familiar brand, like you're saying, that he already trusts and knows.
I totally agree.
Yeah, but he needs Kelly to co-sign it for him, or he needs John to co-sign it for him.
I don't even think they do, though. I think you could go in without – I'm not saying this is the smart play, but I'm thinking you could go in with just Nike, don't sign a pro athlete, just have Nike board shorts, and the guy's like, shit, I'll just buy Nike. Like, they're not – when you're 30 years old, you're not that – like, this isn't a youth play. This isn't –
This is a youth play. I think that there's a youth play here, but – that then kind of eliminates Kelly from the conversation. I think Idolo and John become their marquee athletes at this point. I think like what they did with Jordan was ride Jordan's ascent to fame and help certainly make it happen. But it's too late in Kelly's trajectory of his career to really make that analogous. Whereas I mean, or even go younger, picking a Jack Robinson or somebody like that could be the other, or dude, Jackson Dorian.
Maybe, but I sense that this isn't a youth play. I sense that this is we have loyal Nike people that have been wearing Nike since their friggin' fraternity softball league 15 years ago. And Nike's just ubiquitous. It's just
if that's true, then they don't need to get into surf. If that is all true, then
no, but they
why
want
would
50% of surf market share? Maybe here, I'm going to throw this weird one out at you. Maybe there's a VP there that's like, let's stick it to Bob Hurley. Let's stick it to Can Do Incorporated. Let's go in his own backyard.
If this was
that's a stretch. That's a stretch.
If this was punitive,
he should be fired. He should not work at Nike any longer. But is there a resentment there? I do know
amazing.
They see weak surf retail space, and it's true because it is weak.
Yeah, but again, their whole strategy is to work with athletes. It always has been. I'll take this one step further. For me, this is the last horse of the apocalypse. Like, this is not an indicator of, oh yeah, a bunch of money is going to be flying around in surfing anymore.
No.
I
agree with you.
This is an indicator of, yeah, remember when Hurley got bought by Blue Star and there was an Oprah televangelist running the World Surf League? Well, then Nike came in and completely did a cannonball, and all of the water splashed out of Kelly Slater's tub in the middle of California. Like, that is what's happening right now. This is the final horse of the apocalypse.
I agree with that. And why is that? There's just simply no core brands. There's no such thing as a core surf brand. It just doesn't exist.
The fact that you and I just spent 20 minutes trying to cobble together a marketing strategy for this company that has nothing to do with surfing, and trying to find an athlete who's willing to sell their soul to shill it to the guy on a wave storm walking into the corner surf shop in Huntington Beach is insane. It could be the low point of Spit ever in the last 7 or 8 years.
It's a high
I mean,
point.
it's insane. But it is, again, this is we're in 2020 right now. This is the most apocalyptic year ever. We're being ravaged by a virus. Our state is burning to the ground. And the surf industry is completely, I mean, this is insane.
Well, look, you and I have said this, and I still agree with, I still hold this to be true, that the most core brand, both inside and outside of the surf space, is Patagonia. And they don't really even care about the surf space. They kind of got a little bit of an inkling in it. They're kind of in it, but it has more to do with their brand vision and their brand visionary and Yvon Chouinard that carries my loyalty.
Yeah.
Than some guy that's like, oh, let's make some, eco-friendly board shorts and blah, blah. And it's like, dude, sounds like a scam.
Well, in other news or tangential news, Julian Wilson is suing Hurley for the $1.5 million annual salary that they owe him. He was on contract with them, I forget when he signed, but it was certainly prior to them selling to Blue Star. And part of that contract stated that he has to compete every year. And in 2020, there's no competition. So they are reneging on their $1.5 million salary, and he's suing them for it. He's basically saying even though the contract states that I have to compete, this is a unique scenario where there's a pandemic and the WSL isn't running the events that I'm supposed to compete in. So you guys still owe me my salary. And apparently they're going to go to court.
Wow.
Or not. Maybe they won't go to court. Maybe they'll just pay him out or pay him a lesser amount. I think John settled for $2 million out of the 12 that he was owed over the next 6 years. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So John basically said, look, I'm not going to be forced for the next 6 years to cross every T and dot every I and probably go to, autograph signings in Virginia Beach. How about we both walk away amicably? And he did, for apparently $2 million. So Julian might find himself in a similar situation. I don't know how many years are left on Julian's contract, but it's 1.5 a year plus bonuses.
So bringing this back to Nike a little bit, because you're bringing up something that I think we should dive into a little more, is who's the guy? And so you think that Nike might sign a guy, and I agree with that. And you're thinking it would be Idolo is your best bet. I don't think Idolo's that marketable.
I think John, if I was at if I was at Nike, I would argue for John.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. So number one on your list is John.
John's got 2 world titles. John's got 2 Eddies. John has really kind of diverse, interests, between sailing and fishing and photography and filmmaking and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, John's legacy is sewn into Hawaii's DNA. And that is steadfast. That's evergreen. Whereas Idolo, the Brazil legacy and where it fits into the surfing world is a little more trend sensitive. And certainly they'll be surfing there probably forever from this point on, but it doesn't have the history that Hawaii has. It doesn't have the marquee waves that Hawaii has. Hawaii is important to surfing, and John is their ultimate representative at this point, So I think that is worth more.
Do you think that Nike, after 2 or 3 years, will either see them own the space, like be like 30% of market share or more in surf retail, or they're like, you know what, it was a good experiment, we rolled the dice, we're out, we lost a little bit of money, so what? You think in 3 years we'll know?
It's too early to say. I'm more concerned about that what I said earlier is that it actually is the final straw that breaks the credibility of surfing. So I could see from this, like they come in, they dump a bunch of money in, they procure athletes, and it elbows out the smaller brands and further kind of fractures whatever sales Rourke was getting at, or Brixton was getting at Huntington Surf and Sport,
Yeah.
they're going to lose to Hurley, or I'm sorry, to Nike. And so there's going to be fewer small brands competing for less space, and a couple of giant Walmart and Amazon taking up the vast majority of market share. And which is actually, it could be a good thing. It certainly breaks the industry. And then, by the way, side note, the WSL goes out of business. So there's no more professional tours. There's fewer brands, like authentic kind of brands. So that is the last horse of the apocalypse. But the good thing is this is now a resetting. So you and I still need surfboards. We need wetsuits. So we can get our Need Essentials still, because Need Essentials isn't going to be affected by that. And we can still get our surfboards because individual board builders are the most core surf brands, period. And they're not going to be affected by this. And you and I can still go surfing, just like we have throughout COVID and whatever else. And so there's an opportunity to reset. And for the most authentic brands like Need Essentials or whoever else to come in and just make a small business. They don't need those guys. They're never going to make millions of dollars off of their business, but they're going to provide for their families, and they're going to provide a good quality product at a competitive price. And you and I won't be buying Nike, but the middle America dude or the guy on the Wave Storm going into the corner retailer in big cities, maybe they do buy Nike, But I think that
I'll buy Nike. I'll absolutely. I buy Nike right now. I'll buy Nike.
I stopped buying Nike years ago.
Oh, did you? You
why would you buy Nike?
Nice shoes. They got comfortable shoes.
They have terrible shoes. Their shoes fall
apart.
What
am I, a shoe aficionado? I just put the shoes on there.
Well, notice your Nikes will fall apart in half the amount of time that any other shoe that you buy will.
I don't wear shoes.
Well, there you go. So you wear Nike sandals?
No, I don't. My point is I'm not against Nike. Maybe I should be. Maybe I need to be slapped around. Maybe I need to be socially woke.
I'm anti-Nike.
And by the way, I don't mean to say that I go out looking for Nike. Like, I bet I don't own a pair of Nikes. Actually, I do. I own one pair of Nikes. I bought them 8 years ago at a fine men's store where you would buy like a blazer. And, but I mean, I have Pumas. I think my golf shoes are Pumas. I have Vans. I have like Tevas. I have a wide variety of shoe wear is what I mean. I'm not like loyal to Nike, but I wouldn't not buy Nike. I wouldn't go into a surf shop and go, oh, they're not a surf brand. And part of that's my demographic. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I stopped buying Nike, I'd say 10, 15 years ago, simply because the shoes would fall apart.
Huh, well.
They're poorly made as compared to other shoes I was buying. But yeah, I mean, I see opportunities here for core brands to reconnect with consumers. I also see you wearing Slater sandals at this time next year.
No.
Slater golf shoes even. Hey, the problem is Outer Known is owned by the Caring Group, which also owns Puma. So maybe Slater would have a conflict of interest there.
Yeah. Probably.
But I think
I don't think it's Slater. I don't think it's Slater.
I mean, the thing is, they are big in golf too. Nike's huge in golf, and there's carryover, obviously, with Slater.
Puma's big in golf.
Yeah. Well, in other news, I know we need to wrap up here pretty quick, but I do have other news that's highly important because I think this might be the first time that this has ever happened. In the Big Wave Awards, Maya Gabieri's the female surfer who won the biggest wave on the female side, her wave was actually bigger than the male's wave. Kai Lenny won for the men's side. Maya Gabiera won on the women's side, and Maya's wave was 3 feet is the amount that they measured. 3 feet taller than Kai's. Is that a first ever, Scott Bass?
I mean, I guess
wave is the biggest.
I guess it is. I think at that level, 3 feet, there's like 12 feet of friggin' spray. Like, how do you even measure 3 feet on a 70-foot wave or 100-foot wave or whatever? It's like, it's just, it's kind of nonsensical.
They had scientists measure it.
Science is wrong.
Science. Hey, so this is actually the real story is Justine DuPont was pissed.
Oh.
Because she feels her wave was bigger. And they actually took 2 weeks, I think, or maybe a week longer to reveal the women's winner because they had to go to like special judging because they was so close. And when they finally released the results, they said Maya's was bigger, but every statement that they said, what they put the word approximate in front of. So they're like, the two women are approximately the same size. The waves were approximate this, and the angle of photography was approximately this. And Justine's like, then how can you create and they even said they had scientists do it. So Justine's argument was, how can you say it's science if it's all approximate? And if it's that close, we need to figure out an actual objective definable criteria. So I watched the WSL's explanation video. They actually went through the effort of having Chris Cote interview the two scientists. Both of the scientists work for the Kelly Slater Wave Co. So there's Adam Fincham, who's like the lead guy, and then there was their other engineer that works at the wave pool. And so because they both have some doctor level degree, and because they work in the wave pool space, they are the most credible officials that they could find. And they went through this whole explanation. I didn't buy 1 minute of it. It's like, yeah, yes, that is kind of the best that you can do.
Bring back Flippy Hoffman, man. Flippy Hoffman should make this decision.
Did you watch The Two Waves by any chance?
They need to make Derek Dorner the guy that decides this. That would be perfect. Nobody's going to question Derek Dorner.
And they need to stop trying to make it objective and scientific because it's a fool's errand. You could never. And here's two other important details for you, Scott. They're only measuring wave height. Justine gets this barreling, super gnarly wave at Nazare. And Maya's is a crumble. Like it's a crumbler. It's like a full mush burger. The other detail, Maya doesn't complete the ride. She gets engulfed by that whitewash and eats crap. Justine gets engulfed by the whitewash of a gnarly barreling left and makes it. So it's like aside from wave height, Justine's wave is gnarlier. It's within inches or feet of actual height, and the thing is gaping like a full gnarly left. Maya's is within inches of height in a crumbly mush burger that she doesn't make. The thing's a complete travesty. Justine has an absolute argument. Them hiring scientists to just measure the physical height is the wrong approach. It's completely a fool's errand, and it's the wrong approach. So you're right. Derek Donor would look at those two waves. I encourage you, I'm embedding this footage right now over our YouTube version of this podcast, so listeners can be watching as I'm arguing. But you, Scott, I'll send you the footage afterwards. You watch the two waves. You'll take one look. You don't even need to watch it twice. You'll take one view and you'll go, oh yeah, Justine. For sure, Justine's the gnarliest wave. And
back in the day, I guess Bill Sharp's still involved, but they used to send out to the mat. Like I used to be on the voting panel. I would vote for the double XL. I was on the Billabong double XL. Like Bill would send me an email and go, hey, vote, and he would send it to like maybe, 60 people or something. And now it's just, I don't know how they do it, but I know it's just kind of boiled down and in-house as far as the voting and the judging.
So again, I think that is a reflection of them trying to make it more scientific. Them going, hey, we're going to legitimize this thing and be able to define what's what. So let's keep it all in-house. A, it's a fool's errand. And B, it's a huge failure that you, who were on the committee, didn't even know that this thing happened. So even though they're doing it in-house, they should still be publicizing it enough so that you know the results or that you have some vested interest in it. Because, by the way, you did it for a decade.
Yeah, a long time.
It's like insane.
I think that at the end of the day, the smart move here, because I don't know how much they gave to Maya, but I'm assuming it's like $60,000 or $100,000 or something. They should have just given them both $100,000. Like Dirk Ziff's got $100,000 and his wife loves women's surfing so much. Just give them, if it's that close, it rarely happens if there's a tie. This year there was a tie. What a great move that would have been. Remember like last year and they were all about equal pay for the women. Well,
Yeah.
if it's a tie, it's a tie. Give them both
Well,
the money. Maybe they don't want to set that precedent. I don't know.
I don't disagree with you. The other thing that's tied up in this is that Maya's is a Guinness record setting wave. So I feel like the publicity associated with doing that was actually better for the WSL's business, and
Oh
maybe
my
that was
God,
the push.
that's now we have a conspiracy, a
I'm
big
in.
conspiracy.
I mean, it's true
The
though,
whole thing's lame. Surfers are the worst. This whole
dude.
double XL thing's kind of lame.
Yeah. Well, the big, like I said, the
I mean,
big
I'm glad
news,
surfers are getting paid. That's cool,
but the big news story really is that the women's wave is bigger than the men's wave, and I think that should have been a talking point for the WSL. That should have been a headline that they pumped through everywhere. And at that point, why even separate the category by gender?
exactly.
Maya beat Kai, period.
Boom, that would have been insane.
And Justine beat both of them.
Right. According to Derek Dorner, that's the way they got to do it. They got to get an old salty dog like they used to have Flippy Hoffman in there, just going. Nobody's going to argue with Flippy Hoffman.
Exactly.
And they need to get Derek Dorner in there, and there's probably a million other good candidates that could help figure this thing out. You know,
Dude, you and I could do a better job. You and I,
well,
honestly.
I would be no, it would be like Cole Christensen and
No, I know, but
I
still,
don't know, Eric Haas or somebody like just.
I agree with you, but this one was so egregious that you and I got it
Yeah.
more right than the scientists,
Yeah.
quote unquote scientists. All right, dude, must see moment. Duke, Kook, what do you got?
Well, I've got a kook, and it could be a Duke. I don't know. My kook is this. I think my kook are the Spanish police that arrested this woman on the beach for surfing as she knew she was infected with the coronavirus. Local reports said that the unnamed woman had worked as a lifeguard at San Sebastian's famous La Concha Beach this summer, and colleagues were the ones who phoned the police after spotting their colleague lifeguard in the water surfing. They're like, hey, she's been testing positive for coronavirus and she's in the water surfing. So they called the cops on their fellow lifeguard who came and arrested her. She's expected to pay a heavy fine for breaching strict quarantine rules, which could be up to, I think, $5,500, probably that's euro. And however, if she has discovered that she passed the coronavirus on to another person through her actions, the fines could be as much as €1,000. So I don't know. Who's my kook? Is my kook the lifeguard friends that snitched her out? Is my kook the girl who surfed with the coronavirus? Is my kook the police? I don't know, but somebody's a kook here and somebody's a Duke, and I haven't figured it out.
I think the woman for surfing is definitely a kook. Like, look, I'm pretty cavalier. I've been pretty cavalier about this whole coronavirus thing. If I knew I had coronavirus, I would quarantine at home by myself for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, if you have the information, you can't then go actively spread it. I mean, I remember hearing stories, horror stories. I don't know where this was, but like back in the AIDS pandemic or crisis, like some guy who knew that he had it, who was so spiteful and angry that he was randomly sleeping with women, one night stands, to infect them with AIDS. Like, that is the definition of sociopathic criminality,
Yeah.
And the COVID thing isn't exactly analogous because it's not as, I don't know, direct, but it's akin. It's akin. She's the kook for sure.
Okay.
I've got a kook for you.
Yeah.
A listener sent me footage of an incident at Salt Creek. And
this is good.
So this male surfer, I want to say he's in his early 40s. I've been direct messaging with him on Instagram, so I'm going to interview him. I wanted to actually have him on today's show, but he's homeschooling the kids, so he couldn't be here. At any rate, I'll follow up and get him on so he could share his story. But he was basically surfing Salt Creek 2 or 3 days ago, and he had an incident with somebody else, and where that person thought that they had priority, he felt like that person didn't, so he went on the wave. Ultimately, they end up back in the lineup, and this other person confronts him, and they have a verbal dispute. A woman paddles over who is friends with that the unnamed character, and she's on a wave storm, and she starts verbally assaulting him too. So this particular guy that we're going to have on the show has two people verbally assaulting him, and the woman on the wave storm starts poking him with the board, like jabbing him with the wave storm physically. While all this is happening, the woman actually called over a third person from behind where the victim, I'll label as him as the victim. So he's in a verbal altercation with these two people in front of him. There's a third assailant coming up from behind. The third assailant paddles up, pulls him off his board, dunks him, holds him underwater. The initial person that the argument was with comes over and starts punching him underwater. So because he got pulled off of his board unknowingly, he didn't even get like a breath, like a big, deep lungs full of air. He just got, next thing he knows, he's underwater, not breathing, can't breathe, struggling to get up. The guy's holding him down and the other guy's punching him.
Gnarly.
So he comes up and he's like, what? Like, are you guys insane? I'm going directly into the beach to tell the lifeguards, and we're calling the cops. And this is like attempted murder, you know? The woman beelines it into the beach first, gets to the lifeguard first, and starts saying, hey, he threw the first punch. There was an altercation, but he threw the first punch. Well, there's surfline footage of it. So this guy shares his story with the lifeguard. The lifeguard doesn't know who to believe, but he goes home, pulls up the Surfline rewind cam, and has the footage. So he posted the footage on Instagram, basically asking for help, saying, hey guys, this is what happened. Here's the physical description of the assailants. I've seen them out there before. You general public must know who these people are. By the way, he's a single father raising two kids. His two kids were on the beach. He has a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old who are playing on the beach at the time that this happened in the water. So he feels like this is absolutely like a threat to society to have these people out here doing this insane thing. And so he's asking for public justice. I was going to have him on just so he can explain his story and draw more attention to it so that the assailants could be brought to justice. And yeah, that's my kook. My kook are the assailants in this scenario.
Wow, that is a gnarly story, man.
Crazy, right?
I just randomly saw the Instagram. I didn't really look at it too deeply. I just thought it was kind of like a kook slam thing or something. Like there wasn't. I didn't realize how deep it got. I didn't realize that there was full-on group assault on one human.
Dunking. The dunking thing, dude, even when I was a kid, I wouldn't, and playing in the pool with my cousins or friends, like the dunking thing is, I don't know. It's not fair. People develop hydrophobia because of early experiences like that, you know? Like, I just feel like that crosses a line.
Is this must play into your tube dodging, right? Like you're just afraid
Hey,
because of the dunking.
I'm a little bit triggered right now. Okay. This is, you don't have to bring up a sensitive subject.
It's a safe space. You're by yourself with your dog.
So my Duke, on the other hand, is Tyler Wright for her performance and social statement, aka virtue signaling in the Tweed Coast Pro. Tyler Wright was injured. She was out of commission for a good year and a half. And she came back to compete in the final event of 2019 at Honolulu, and she looked really, really strong. But she looked incredible in the Tweed Coast Pro, and she actually won the event. Stephanie Gilmore also looked great, but Tyler Wright was undeniable. Tyler shredded. And so it's great to see her back in competition. She painted Black Lives Matter on the bottom of her surfboard, and at the beginning of her quarterfinal heat, I feel, she took a knee for, in solidarity for George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. You know, I have two thoughts about that particular aspect of it. Number one, I always am willing to call people out for virtue signaling just for the sake of virtue signaling. My second thought is Tyler Wright, we're well past the trend of doing this. So the fact that she's still championing the cause, I actually give her a kudos to. There was no need for her to do this. There was no public pressure for her to do this. This is her kind of taking the social cause seriously and still campaigning for it 2 months after it was fashionable to do. So Tyler Wright is my Duke of the week.
All right. Well, that's well stated.
Thank you.
And yeah, I can tell you thought that through.
Thank you.
I'm a fan as well.
Well, Scott, am I ever going to see you in person again?
I mean, the last time we were in person, we were supposed to do all of our podcasts from John Severson's desk. Remember that?
Those were pipe dreams.
That can still occur. You know, we need to give a shout out to SHAC, the Surfing Heritage and Culture Center. And I imagine, I don't know, that's a great question. This is pretty easy. This, you know, like not having you and I to drive to meet. So I think, no, I don't think we'll ever see each other in person again. I think this is
It was
over.
nice knowing you.
Well, we still know each other. We're just in a Zoom sort of way.
I feel like Zoom has even gotten better since we started doing this. There's less tinniness. There's less disconnections. So at some point it'll be almost like we'll have a VR experience of Zoom where we can even incorporate Severson's desk. VR will be so good. I can hand my cup of coffee to you through the screen. You can take it and take a sip and give me COVID.
I know my breath has gotten a lot better since Zoom. Nobody's said anything about my breath.
We'll talk to your wife off camera to verify those facts.
Yes.
By the way, that's a beautiful Wayne Rich surfboard behind you.
Yes, Wayne Rich. That's my go-to right there. Thing's killer.
Tell me about it.
It's 5'10". It's a 4-fin, kind of a tweener board, you know, like between a fish and a standard contemporary tri-fin. A lot of times, as you know, David, the tweeners don't work. You get, instead of the best of both worlds, you get the worst of both worlds. But this particular board works. I've had this board for a long time, and it's had fins replaced numerous times. And it's, when I'm in fighting shape, it's still the right amount of volume for me. And yeah, my buddy Wayne Rich.
Let me ask you this.
B-Dog. If you want to go to his website or email him or Instagram Wayne and go, I heard about the B-Dog.
Dog is spelled with a W, right? D-A-W.
Right. Yeah. Dog.
Let me ask you this. Why does everybody from Joel Tudor to Devin Howard to Mark Andrini to Jerry Lopez to Pat Rawson all bow down to Wayne Rich?
Oh, I don't know if they bow down to him, but
no, they do. They venerate him like he's an absolute icon. Why do they?
Well, he's just a very sweet, soulful guy, you know, and he's been around forever, and he's I don't know, he's a great shaper, and he's won the shape off. Not that that means a whole lot, but it does validate your shaping ability a little bit to go up against the world's best, and I mean, he can make anything, and he's kind of old school. And he's just a super soulful guy. So,
well, the fact that those guys, no joke, I didn't mean bow down in that he's better than they are. I mean, they all view him as,
he's an incredible craftsman.
Yeah, that's the absolute truth. Is he makes insane boards.
Yeah.
I've never even ridden one. But what's your experience riding them?
Well, I've had quite a few, you know, and this is one of my all-time favorites. And we worked on this design a little bit together. And
so does the B stand for bass?
No.
What does it stand for?
I don't know.
Brother. He likes the term brother.
Yeah, the brother dog.
He refers to everybody as brother.
The brother dog.
Yeah.
But it's a great surfboard. And I've been trimming down my surfboards as I build this wall in my backyard. The costs are going up, so the surfboards are getting less and less.
No way.
But so I'm basically down to the boards that I won't sell.
Wait a second. How many boards have you sold?
Maybe 6.
Where are you selling them?
I go to the Board Source in Carlsbad and off my boards there, you know.
So they are a reseller of surfboards, and they have a brick and mortar store.
Yeah, it's just it's not old. It's just like an industrial park office in the back. It's very low key. Kind of going through the back door, like going into a nightclub late at night, down the stairs through the back door. And yeah.
By the way, I just got I just got a note from a listener about Tyler Wright's Black Lives Matter reaction to the Ricardo Munoz shooting. Is unfortunate timing. Okay, I don't know what this is. I'll have to look into this. But he said the BLM reaction to the Ricardo Munoz shooting is unfortunate timing for Tyler. The takeaway is be sure to do a little research before grandstanding. Eek. I'm not sure what that's in relation to. So I'll have to, I should also do a little research before reading
We don't do
emails
that
on air.
We don't do research. Everyone that listens to our show knows very little research.
Well, back to board resale. So board resale values are an abomination. Like, sir, you could spend $1,000 on a surfboard and try to resell it next week and you won't get $200 for it. Like, it's an absolute shame. But if you want to save money, buying used surfboards is a wonderful way to go. And so businesses like the Board Source are a real secret kind of value play. And they do have a website, I believe, too. I'm sure they'll ship you boards. But
yeah, it's a pretty cool store. And you're right. I mean, it's hard to go there and sell boards and leave without a couple boards also.
Oh, right. Yeah.
They've got a bunch of cool boards for really good deals.
Yeah. All right, Scott. Well, hey, it was good to catch up with you. Yeah.
I've got a board. Matt Calvani and I at Bing are working on a board. I've given him my all-time favorite ever Hinson Twinser, and we're going to somehow try to marry that with their Cypress model. And we haven't done too much. All I've done is drop the board off. I need to go visit him and talk about it. But that's going to be a fun board to get involved with.
You are a paradox wrapped in a conundrum, wrapped in a riddle, Scott Bass. Yes. I need to sell some boards to pay for my retaining wall, but I'm developing a brand new one.
I don't know if we're developing. I just, it's like you start talking with a shaper. I'm the worst. Like, as soon as I start talking with a shaper, it's very hard for me not to leave with, hey, make me a board. Like that usually ends up happening. And it's bad. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing.
And then right as you're finishing the retaining wall, the invoice shows up.
Oh.
And you got to sell 3 more.
Right.
God, there was one final thing I was going to try to tell you before we go off the air, and I forget what it is now.
You're old and you'll buy Nike.
Oh, well.
Okay. Well,
right.
I'll tell you this. Surfers Are the Worst t-shirts are coming back. I'm going to order a bunch of Surfers Are the Worst t-shirts and sell them because people are geeked on it.
Good. That'll get you your Bing board. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you was I interviewed Lauryn Hill, and she's has a kid with Dave Rostovich. I don't think they're married, but they could be. I don't know. They're partners. They refer to each other. They refer to each other as partners. That's what we do nowadays. Right. Feels weird to say my boyfriend or my girlfriend when you're in your mid 30s, So this is my partner. Anyways, you told a story 6 months ago about trading a twin fin to Dave Rostovich and getting a blow up mat in return.
Yeah.
And then you found that photo of that board. Is the board being sold or what?
Somebody bought it from somebody. They found it somebody sent me an image of the 3 boards, and this was one of those boards. And in the image caption, it said, hey, I scored 3 boards for this upcoming winter. And the guy's down in Australia. And one of the boards is my fish that I traded to Rostovich. And I told Dave, don't ever sell this board. If you're going to sell it back to me.
Right.
And in the description of the board, it's like, this is the Steve List fish from Dave Rostovich that he traded a mat for, as if like I'm the bad guy here.
Like there's a sucker out there.
Yeah,
there's a sucker out in the world who ended up with a mat.
Exactly. And so I tried to find this guy. His name's Wayne Stokes. And I tried to find him on Instagram, and it must not have been an Instagram image that was sent to me. It's some other form of social media.
Yeah, the one that you sent to me looked like Facebook.
Maybe that's what it was. I need to go search him down on Facebook or something. But if anyone knows Wayne Stokes, tell him I would very much like to buy my old board back from it. My old Steve List fish, which was my favorite friggin' list ever.
And you sent me that photo, and I asked you if I could post it, and then I never did because I wanted to talk to you on air before I post it. So I'll post that footage.
Yeah, post that
photo.
I'm looking to buy that board back from Wayne Stokes.
What a wonderful full circle thing, though. Just,
If
I
it
mean, the
hasn't,
surf.
the circle's been broken. It needs to reconnect.
That's true, but the surf world is small. Ultimately, is what it comes down to. But social media makes it even smaller.
Yeah.
You know? So,
How much do you think I'm going to have to pay to get this board back?
trade him a mat. I think I think all's fair.
I think a Surfers Are the Worst t-shirt is a good trade.
And a mat.
I don't have any mats. I threw my mat in the trash.
Hurley makes them now.
Oh, Lordy. All right. Well, until next time, adios and aloha.